Okay, the first Saturday and the second Saturday we have an extra subject that I just added because of the importance of the subjects. It's something that I explain. Today's extra subject I explain at the workshop also. And also in lesson 12 will be discussed. It's about energy. That is because in Eastern philosophy, everything is energy, considered to be energy, in essence. In yoga, therefore, it's the same. And you're familiar with the concept already. Shiva, Shakti, and of course the most important, Sattva. Now, life fluctuates between Tamas and Rajas. Tamas when Shiva dominates, when we are resting, or when we are exhausted and we need to rest, we go into a tamas condition that helps us to recover. But when the sun comes up, naturally, nature increases Shakti energy. That is the reason why you, like it or not, open your eyes. That is why the birds fly out of their nest looking for food, and when spring comes, the flowers open up in the morning under the influence of Shakti energy. So nature is fluctuating day and night between Tamas and Rajas. So the human being naturally too. At night, the birds go into their nest, the flowers close, and human beings start to yawn and just want to take a rest, go to sleep. So it's energy that controls this. And Shakti energy is responsible for movement, it's expanding, and it's rising. Well, Shiva energy is responsible for recovery and rest. It's contracting and it's descending. Now, the tragedy of the universe, no, maybe it's not a tragedy, but the fact is that in the whole universe and everything in it, Shiva energy has a tendency to dominate naturally. As a result of that, energy always has a tendency to contract and gravitate towards the bottom. For human beings, this is important because you're already familiar with the chakras. So if there were new students here, my lecture would have been a little bit different. But because you know the chakras, you know that the lower chakras are the locations of lower emotions and desires. While our higher characteristics, our royal characteristics, are located above the diaphragm. So in the lower chakras you have lower emotions and desires. In the heart and the throat you have higher emotions and desires. Still emotions and desires, but we see them in a more positive light because they are love, unconditional love, compassion, empathy, creativity in the throat. While below the diaphragm is pure instinct, survival instinct. When your belly is in turmoil, it's because you are subjected to instability, violence, uncertainty, insecurity. And it prompts you to take action. It prompts you to do something to create new stability and safety. That is roughly the function of these emotions. But if your energy is below, with the energy gravitating towards the bottom, this explains why so many people lash out, are emotional, are unstable. While if energy is allowed to rise up, you have insight, wisdom, intellect is stimulated and expanding. Intuition is located on those higher levels. And the whole goal of yoga is to take control of the energy, not allow the force of the universe to condense to the bottom, but to let energy rise, open the heart, the throat, the intellect, and the crown chakra. The crown chakra is the location of all those wonderful characteristics that lead to high intelligence, genius, spirituality, of course, unconditional love, and that you heard this before because I talked about the heart. But the crown chakra is not within the body, and the expression of the crown chakra goes through the heart. That is why you find unconditional love in the heart, but it actually originates in the crown chakra. The more balanced you are, so there is a constant fluctuation. Human beings are also subject to fluctuation between tamas and rajas, and hardly ever in balance because we're always busy. So we're either busy in rajas or we are tired, needing to rest, so we switch to tamas. Now the ideal situation, and this is why temples and monasteries are so quiet, silent and quiet, little activity. This is also why schools want order and quiet so that students have their energy on higher levels and perform intellectually well. So if you are in the fortunate circumstances where there is peace and quiet, stability and security, energy naturally has a tendency to go to the higher levels of consciousness. Ajna chakra, intellect, and the crown chakra. When there is instability and insecurity, you already can guess, because those are in the lower chakras, your energy is drawn down. And it is drawn away from those higher chakras. So this is where yoga comes in. Yoga is designed to take control of the energy and to bring the center of gravity of your consciousness to the crown chakra, as opposed to it being in the lower chakras below the diaphragm. So, creating the circumstances, you can go to a temple, you can go to a spiritual institute. You have those circumstances where you naturally go into a contemplative mood. But when you're outside and in daily life and at work and commuting and everything, it's very difficult to stay in that sattvic condition. And that's where yoga comes in. If you practice yoga regularly, you become more and more sattvic. Not by circumstances, depending on circumstances, but because of conditioning. You condition yourself to be more and more sattvic, even when in challenging circumstances, even when the circumstances are not favorable towards peace and quiet and safety and security. If you look at modern day yoga courses, a large percentage of the curriculum is about physical anatomy. And if you want to finish the course and get a certificate, you have to memorize all that. Traditional yoga has no physical anatomy. A traditional yoga book, an original yoga book, not the modern fashion thing, but the old scriptures, have no physical anatomy at all. Not a chapter, not a paragraph, not a sentence. Because everything is energy. And the reasoning goes, and that is not only in yoga, that's also in traditional medicine, like Korean medicine, Chinese medicine. Traditional medicine is based on the idea that if the energy is good, the physical body is good. So instead of focusing on symptoms when we are sick, traditional medicine looks at the cause. Because any kind of physical disease or any kind of problem physically that we experience, in the end can be traced back to a disruption in the energy circulation. This applies also to chronic diseases. We will come back to that later when we discuss pranayama. It also comes back to chronic disease because chronic diseases are chronic because they can't be healed. But it means there is structurally something in your body that disrupts the energy in one way or another. With yoga, you can contain it, you can control it. You will not heal completely, but the problem, the issue becomes manageable. So we will talk about that in lesson 19 when we introduce pranayama. But everything is energy. So that is why I thought that this extra subject is important to start with. And what I explained at the workshop also, and maybe you remember this from when you did the course before, that is the yin-yang model, which is not yoga, it's Chinese, but it represents sattva. It's a symbol of harmony. And many people like the yin-yang model. They have a tattoo of the yin-yang model, or a necklace with a hanger, or an earring. But they do not fully understand the depth of the symbol, because it's actually reflecting a human being. Everything is energy, and energy always exists out of two polarities, plus and minus. Yin and yang, feminine, masculine. There are many ways to describe light and dark. The dark side is yin energy, the light side is yang energy. But you see that there is a light eye in the dark side, and there is a dark eye in the light side. And people think it's decoration. Nice, yin-yang model. It's decoration. There is no decoration in symbolical expressions. It always has a meaning. That means that this is not two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional. It means that the dark side has the characteristics of the light side. And the light side has the characteristics of the dark side. Practically it means, looking in the mirror I look like a man, but next to my masculine characteristics I possess feminine characteristics. Every man does, although most men are not admitting it or are scared of it, but it's natural. In the same way, every woman has masculine characteristics besides their feminine characteristics. It goes deeper. If I'm a very masculine guy, I attract very feminine girls and feel attracted to very feminine girls. If I'm a very girlish man, boy, I feel attracted to girls who are relatively masculine. And to understand this better, you can also look at gay couples where you always see that one is masculine and the other is feminine. It is a universal law. If there are two, whether it's gay or straight, if there are two masculine personalities coming together, there is no attraction. And you can try to have a relationship with that person based on appearance. It will never work out in the long term. And of course, in the same way, if there are two characters with two personalities with feminine characteristics, it doesn't attract. So if you can see for yourself in your own life that the person you feel attracted to is filling you in, is filling you up. And if you're relatively balanced, you will attract and feel attracted to a relatively balanced person as well. So it goes very deep. It's not just a decoration. Tamas condition, I explained already, is when you rest. It's important. The impression exists that Shiva energy and Shiva domination leading to a tamas condition is negative, while rajas is positive. That is not true. Shiva energy is important to recover when we're sick or when we're tired. Shakti energy, first thing first. In tamas, with a Shiva domination, we feel languid, we feel tired, don't feel like becoming active. But if you're in a tamas condition for too long, even after you have rested, you become dark, you become depressed, you feel, you start to enter into a cycle of negative thought. That's why it's important that you start moving. It's usually something that you do on Sundays, right? Saturday you take care of the chores, you enjoy, and you rest. On Sunday you sleep longer than normal, but then at some point you just become a little bit skittish. So either you start moving or you just descend into that dark hole of negativity, really, is where it's leading. And when you start moving, Rajas energy is generated. That is how it works. And we like that because Rajas energy leads to a sense of, a slight sense of euphoria. It leads to a sense of excitement. But as opposed to the negativity and the depression occurring in the tamas condition, Rajas condition leads to positive thought, creative thought, ability to control thought also. Control thought as opposed to uncontrolled thought patterns in a tamas condition, leading to a cycle of negative thought. But the most important condition is, of course, sattva. And this will be mentioned many times because that's really what yoga is about. When you experience sattva, you feel comfortable. Your mind is quiet and you are reflective or contemplative. In this condition, you are able to solve big problems, gain insight in complex matters, but also to meditate and reach high spiritual levels. And very important, long before education became institutionalized and established as it is, science in the past was based upon the knowledge and insights gained through this condition in sattva. Ancient people had insight in the universe without telescopes, without rockets being able to fly out of the atmosphere and see what's beyond. And vice versa, they all, on the other side, they had insight into atomic structure, microcosmos. Without microscopes, without AI or what have you, the tools that we have available these days, the incredibly sophisticated tools that we have these days, they had a pretty good idea about these things based on sheer contemplation. meditation, contemplation. All science from the past was based on this. Also, and this is the last thing I want to say and then move on to the next subject. I mentioned this at the introduction workshop also. Just studying does not lead to genius. Studying develops your intellect, but people with degrees who are highly intellectually developed without the crown chakra, they're merely capable of reproducing what they have learned. So they are imprisoned into a box that contains everything that they memorized. But there's no real insight, which means there are no revolutionary inventions, there are no revolutionary insights, revolutionary theories developed, because those occur when we combine high intellect with intuition, which is the crown chakra. So when the crown chakra and Ajna chakra start to cooperate with one another, then it leads to genius. And you only have to look at the word genius to understand how this works. Because genius means spirit, is a Latin word for spirit. And spirit is in the crown chakra. But there are other words that relate to this. People use these words on a daily basis, but do not understand the deep meaning. Inspiration. When you're inspired, it comes from the Latin in spiritus. You're inspired. The Korean one, shinnata, shininasso. That's when people are enthusiastic. What does it mean? Shin means God. Crown chakra. Korean people do not, when I mention this in class with Korean people, the light goes on, they think, oh really? It's the same with genius and inspiration. People do not realize that this is directly referring to a condition that occurs when there is energy in the crown chakra. It explains also why people who have relative levels of energy in the crown chakra, they're relatively happy all the time, relatively joyful all the time, because that is in the crown chakra. So inspiration, enthusiasm, Shininan condition, it's all related, it's all connected. And it also explains why when you're outside, you see all those dark faces. You don't see people smiling and happy all over the place and what have you. They're dark and depressed. And why? Because the energy is down. There's no energy in the crown chakra. So life is dark and boring and unpleasant. Just something to live through. And we compensate for that in all kinds of ways with food and drink and relations and what have you. Just in short. All right. Questions about this? So very important that's in the last paragraph. Very important is, out of all this, is to understand that you can control your condition. And that is where the whole framework, the whole system of yoga comes in. If you have the discipline to practice on a fairly regular basis, regardless of the circumstances that normally cause tamas or rajas, you will be more and more sattvic. That is what real mastership means. Real mastership means to be in control of the circumstances rather than be subjected to the circumstances. Nothing is ever perfect, of course. You're still a human being. But whenever you're hit by something, you feel the hit and you quickly take control. simply by staying centered up there. All right. Short break? Just a couple of minutes? Yeah.